So how can your enthusiasm help you to quit drinking alcohol? I'm Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com. I think enthusiasm for anything in life is sort of, is it a prerequisite? Is it something that you need? It certainly helps. It's like what they say about money, you know, money can't buy you love, right? Money is the root of all evil, you know. Money can't buy you, money is shit, you know. It certainly helps to have money, you know. Without money, there's an awful lot of things that you can't do in life, you know. I watched an episode of, I think it was Carl Pilkington, The Moaning of Life, and in one of these episodes, he was talking to a guy who he just renounced money in all its facets in life, right? He refused to take money off anyone. He was living on the streets and stuff like that. And he said he was happy, but he didn't look very fucking happy to me, right? The guy was living underneath a tarpaulin, a plastic tarpaulin, beside a lake. And fair enough, on a lovely summer's evening, it would have been nice. One or two, I'm all in for camping and all that kind of stuff, but when he went round at the end of this day to have a look at this, it was pissing rain, and before this, Pilkington was going, yeah, I'm up for this, I'll do this, you know. I don't mind sleeping out underneath the bushes and stuff. And then he saw the thing, this bit of big plastic sheeting, and it was pissing down rain, and he got underneath it and he said, is there any size on this? I said, no. And then he's going, I can't do this. No, I mean, at home, you know, like I've got the choice of this, or I've got, I'm not sure if it was a 3 or 4 star hotel with a lovely bed, and I could be in this bed now tonight thinking, oh, I'm glad I'm here, and that's what I'm going to do. So he basically didn't do it. Anyway, this guy was getting all this food from Skips, and he was relying on other people basically to feed him, you know. And that's what life is without money. What's the point? His enthusiasm is not an essential ingredient, but it certainly helps, right? You know, it helps to get excited about things. You know, it's very difficult to get excited about stopping doing something, you know, especially something that's been a part of your life for a long time, like alcohol, right? You know, I mean, from my way of seeing things, alcohol has been around since our birth, you know, because that's what the adults all did, you know, all throughout our lives. And that's how we've got into it, is because we're following the adults, right? So it's been around for all our lives, and we have to get rid of it. And, you know, it's a necessary discomfort that we have to go through, right? And it's never easy to go through any kind of discomfort. So it's difficult to get excited about it. Now, the only thing that you can get excited about is your future. So, you know, to sort of leave the past behind you, you're not giving up anything. You're not, you know, you're not giving up anything great. It's you're stopping doing something which is definitely and 100% causing you damage. You know, the consequences of the drinking are bad for you, right? It's not, alcohol and the body are not meant to be in that kind of a marriage together, you know. And there is a certain amount of natural alcohol in our lives, in the fruit that we're eating, in, you know, if it's fruit that's overripe, there's natural alcohol in your bodily process. But in general, alcohol is not a natural part of our lives and shouldn't be a natural part of our lives. So, you know, anyway, getting off the point here, I'm saying it's difficult to get excited and to show enthusiasm about this. That's why I'm saying point your focus forwards into your future. What you focus on expands. So if you create big goals for yourself, then you can get enthusiastic about this, right? You can show a lot of enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is one of the things that is going to help you to build momentum very quickly, very quickly. You know, if you can build your enthusiasm from day one, from before day one, from the time that you start this whole journey, you know, then, you know, it's going to be good for you. You know, once you can laser lock on that, on your future, on your future goals, it helps you to stay focused on that future. You know, once you can, your enthusiasm is going to help you to maintain that focus. You know, like I say, you're not missing anything, so don't be looking backwards. Don't be looking at what's gone before you, except to learn from your mistakes, move forward, laser lock onto the goals that you want in life. Laser lock onto those goals, because, you know, and that's what I'm saying, you know, the bigger the goal, the better. You know, go for it. You know, even if you don't make these things, you know, go for them, you know, because you're definitely going to be in a better position if you go for the goals than if you don't go for them, if you sit in your arse and you don't do anything. You understand? You know, another reason for trying to maintain your enthusiasm is because it reduces the overall fear, right? You know, fear is a big obstacle for keeping you back, for holding you from, stopping you from achieving the things that you want to achieve, you know, and especially this kind of thing where you're trying to leave behind a habit, right? Something that is very much ingrained into your life, into your personality, right? So you've got to focus on the future and maintain that focus and keep your fear levels down by maintaining an enthusiastic outlook. You know, we fear a lot of things. Fear people, fear what people might say, fear what people might do, you know, fear what situations we might be in, whatever, you know. Enthusiasm can help you to overcome them, or at least sort of keep them pushed down and keep them under covers, under wraps, you know, muffled, you know, like you're holding your hand over the mouth of fear, you know, and it's there trying to get out, but enthusiasm will do that for you. And, you know, as I said, it helps if you plan out big things for yourself, you know. Fuck these small plans, you know. I want to quit drinking. That's a small plan, it's small thinking, you know. I want to go get to a year without drinking. Small thinking, you know. Think big. Why fucking not? You know, what have you got to lose? Like I say, if you think big and you seriously put some effort into thinking how you're going to get to those big plans, how you're going to get there, break them down into little small chunks and do these little chunks and plan how you're going to get to these little goals. If you do that and you do it with enthusiasm, right, you're much more likely to get to your goals. And you know, you might find that a year down the road, 2 years down the road, you don't really want to get to that big goal anymore, that you've thought of something better. Good for you. You know, you wouldn't have thought about that. That idea wouldn't have popped into your head if you hadn't have had that first response of pushing after that first goal, right? You know, most people have such a fear about not achieving anything good in life that they just don't bother. You know, they sit down in front of the telly. Not that there's anything wrong with watching a bit of telly, but they sit down and they don't do anything through fear. And the first way to overcome fear is to get up off your ass and do something, action. You know, and put your plans into action. If you put your plans into action, then you'll overcome the fear, you know. You start building momentum with your enthusiasm for what you're going to go. The closer you get to your goals and stuff, you know, you'll get excited about it and go, geez, I'm nearly at that first goal. You know, I mean, it's good to get excited about getting to that first year. Don't get me wrong. I think it is a milestone that people should be aiming for, right? It's a great feeling when you get to the first year, right? My third year's just passed, and it's like, yeah, I've got past my third year. Probably 5 years now, and I'll be going, yeah, got to 5 years and stuff like that. But it's incidental, right? It's not a big deal. You know, it shouldn't be the big goal that you're aiming for. The big goal that you're aiming for should be, you know, I want to stop young people from drinking, right? I want to stop as many young people from starting drinking as I possibly can. That's my goal in life, right? I want to prevent, you know, people that are drinking, right? Fair enough, that's a byproduct. If I can sort of get people to think about the drinking, then in that way it's going to stop a lot of younger people from starting out in the habit, right? You stop the parent, you stop the grandparent, then they can be a good influence on their own children, right? But my ultimate goal is to just put that mindset into young kids' minds that, fuck this, I'm not poisoning my body with cigarettes, with booze, and I'm not doing it with food either, you know. I want to live a healthy life. I want to get to 100 years of age being healthy. You know, and since I've stopped drinking, right, I've been looking at, you know, there's just different. YouTube is a brilliant resource, right? For me to put my videos up, right, and to get my own message out. But for anybody can put their own videos up, and there's a revolution going in the food industry, and there's more and more people that are turning vegan, right? For instance, now I'm not talking about just veganism, right? I'm talking about healthy food choices. What you put inside your body is what you create, right? It's what you are, what you eat. And you know, Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, he's the Hippocratic Oath is based on what he on his name, right? What all doctors, the oath that all doctors take. It's first do no harm or something like that. I don't know what it is, but anyway, he said that let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food, or the other way around. Yeah. Let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food. And most of the people that are in this vegan, you know, the plant-based diet and all this kind of stuff, most of these people they're young people, right, who look fit and healthy on what they're doing, and they're preaching a good life, and they're telling good stories, giving great examples. But there's more and more older people coming out now and saying, this is what I have done. This is my example. This is who I was 5 years ago, right? When I was eating meat, dairy, and all this kind of stuff. This is who I am now when I've stopped doing that to myself, right? Same message that I'm putting across with, this is who I was 3 years ago. This is who I am now, just 3 years after I stopped. I mean, I'm going through some of the old videos on the website now and just trying to reorganize things. And I just noticed the massive changes, not only in my physical appearance, but in who I am as a person, my confidence levels, the way I think about alcohol, you know, how that has evolved, my message, all that kind of stuff, right? And that's an onward progress, right? It's the more I get into this, the more I think about it, the more enthusiastic I am about the whole thing. And the more concrete I am in my aim. And my aim is to prevent as many young people from starting out drinking alcohol through education. I'm not talking about saying, you know, drugs are shit and ban every drug and stuff, and you shouldn't be doing that. I'm all for legalizing the whole lot, right? Because there's too much money being spent locking people up for just using something because somebody else says you can't use it, right? I'm not talking about that, right? That's forcing people without explaining, right? Without giving them a proper explanation. You've got to tell people why they shouldn't be doing this. And you've got to lead by example and say, well, do you want to be this person here who is, you know, staggers out of a nightclub and, you know, doesn't achieve anything in their lives, it's ruining their body, you know? A quick message, right? It's like I'm saying, there's two different ways to try and educate people. There's the way that's sort of force-fed education, or there's teaching people by example, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not there yet. I'm not anywhere close to doing that. I want to write a book about this, but I want to do a video course on this. As I said, I'm not anywhere near doing this because I just can't do it justice yet. But I'm heading in the right direction. Every day I'm learning something new, and I'm learning how to communicate this, and that's what it all boils down to, is the communication. If I can't, no matter what my message is, if I can't communicate it properly to young people and speak the way they want to be spoken to, speak in a way that gets through, and that makes the change. I mean, education is fucking useless if it doesn't make a physical change in a person's life, right? It's useless. As I said in a previous video, the way it stands at the moment, 3.3 million people dying every year from alcohol. And 25% of all our young people from the ages of 20 to 39, 25% die from drinking alcohol, die from alcohol, right? And that's the ones that they can pin it down to. I suppose it's a bit easier for that age group to know, yeah, well, it was alcohol that was caused it. And, it's just such a bad stain on the state of the people who are leading us, that this is allowed to go on, where they care about money more than anything else. And that's why I don't have any trust in what the governments can do, that it's all down to us. It's all down to us as individuals to bring our children up with a healthy respect for these things, not to ban them and to say, well, this is against the law, and if you're caught doing this, you'll end up in prison. I'm not in for that kind of punitary bullshit, that doesn't encourage anything. I'm into educating people so that they think for themselves, and it's much more likely that if somebody makes the decision themselves not to do something, that decision will last the rest of their lives, not until just while you're looking and watching them, while they're being watched, at the moment, it's like, it's illegal before a certain time that, they have to be a certain age before they can get a hold of alcohol. Yeah, you and I know that that's bullshit, that, they get their hands on alcohol. When they're young, you're not being held up with the same kind of shit that we've got to deal with, as older. You've freedom in a certain way, and you've got a mind that's fairly open there, and is thinking of all these ways around. Most of our progress in life happens through individuals, and a lot of the big progress, a lot of the big changes that have happened in the past few years, if you think of Google and computing and Facebook, these are all youngsters, children that are doing this, that are thinking up these ways of changing the way we think about things, and regardless of what you think about it yourself, what value you put onto those things. Kids are innovative, young minds are innovative, and they will find ways of doing these things, So forcing them to, with punitive jail sentences or fines, or, getting into trouble for doing these things, that's not the way to go forwards. The way to go forwards is to educate people. Educate people, young people's minds, so that they make their own decisions to do this. So that's my goal. That's where my own enthusiasm lies now, is just to try and, that's my end goal in the distant future. And I put no end date on it, but just to gradually, slowly, inexorably move towards that one single goal, And that's not going to change, because I think it's a worthwhile goal for me to follow. My goal, I remember making a video maybe 2 years ago, and my goal was to be a worldwide expert on alcohol, right? And that's changed. So I don't have that goal anymore. My goal is not to do that. I mean, I'm fully prepared to stand in the background if everything else changes. That's that's how your goals can change, right? And I'm saying that, you know, enthusiasm and, you know, making your goals and heading towards your goals and moving away from the shit in your life and moving towards something good in your life, that's where all the magic happens, you know. And if your goals are something that you decide later on that you don't want to do, then fair enough, you change the goal, right? You say, well, you know, you want to do this instead, do it, you know. If you want to change direction or you want to change parts of the goal, then do that as well. What I'm saying is the enthusiasm is the thing that sort of spurs you on, right? Gets you started, gets you going, gets you moving, and builds up momentum. And the more momentum you get with this, with anything in life, the more willing you are to put in the time and the effort and the patience that you need to see the results, to push through any obstacles and hard times that you find. So that's your lot for today. I'm going to continue with my walk now of another, I think I'm halfway around, so I have another 7 kilometers to do. I've got a juice in my bag. I'm going to drink that now. Well, to get up to the top of this hill first and then have a drink. So until next time, keep enthusiastic, you know, find something that you're enthusiastic about and push forwards. You know, you're not going to be enthusiastic about quitting drinking, so don't even bother, you know. You know, be enthusiastic by all means of getting to that 1 year goal, 6 months goal, 5 years goal, whatever it is that you want to get to, right? But don't let that be your end goal. You know, choose something that's worthwhile in your own life, something big that you want to achieve, you know. We're the creator of our own destiny at the end of the day. So let's go for it. That's what I say. Stay safe. Keep the alcohol out your mouth. Until next time, I'm Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com. Onwards and upwards.